Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, I want you to picture something for me. An archipelago.
Okay.
You know the drill-a-chain of these beautiful isolated islands, blue ocean all around? Maybe you're thinking the Maldives.
Sounds pretty nice. But knowing you and knowing the topic for today, I have a feeling you're about to ruin that lovely mental vacation for me.
Oh, 100%.
Oh.
Because we are not talking about a vacation today. We are talking about a business nightmare.
Uh-oh.
We're doing a deep dive into this idea called the digital archipelago. And trust me, if you run a business, especially something like a law firm, you do not want to be stranded on one of these islands.
No, you definitely don't. And we're unpacking a really fascinating guide today. It's called the MoreMax.net Guide to Unifying the Digital Archipelago.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is, yeah, but the concept is so important. It's basically a name for one of the biggest, most expensive problems facing modern firms: technology fragmentation.
Right. And MoreMax.net, I mean, they specialize in office solutions for law practices. So they have seen this firsthand. They've seen the chaos. But before we get into the solutions, let's just, define the problem.
Let's do it.
What are we actually talking about? Because fragmentation sounds like something that happens to your hard drive, not your company.
Well, the digital archipelago is just a metaphor for what happens when a firm sort of accidentally builds a collection of technology islands.
Islands.
Yeah. So you have your billing software on one island, your case management system is on another, client intake is way over on a third one, and here's the kicker.
Let me guess.
There are no bridges. None of them speak the same language.
So it's not just that you have a lot of apps. I mean, everybody has a lot of apps these days. It's the isolation.
Exactly. It's the silence between the systems. And the guide argues that when your tools don't talk to each other, it stops being just a tech glitch.
It's not just, oh, the printer's jammed again.
No. It becomes a strategic bottleneck. It fundamentally puts a cap on how fast and how well your firm can actually grow.
I really like that distinction, a strategic bottleneck.
Yeah.
Because I think most of us see these things as just little annoyances.
Yeah.
I have to log into this other thing now.
Right.
But you're saying it's much deeper. So the mission for this deep dive is really to figure out how firms can stop just managing their tools, juggling all these islands, and start managing their results.
Precisely. And to get there, we first have to understand the landscape, this great divide that the source talks about. Because most firms, they aren't purely analog, but they aren't exactly living in the future either.
Okay, let's jump into that then. Segment 1, the Great Divide. The guide calls it a hybrid reality.
It's a very common place to be. You're not using quills and parchment, but you're not, a fully AI-driven law firm from a sci-fi movie. You're straddling two worlds.
So what are the two worlds?
On one side, you have the legacy systems. The source calls them the sturdy workhorses.
Now, legacy usually gets a bad rap, right? Just sounds old, obsolete. But it sounds like the guide has some respect for them.
It does, yeah. And you have to think about what these systems actually are. They're typically on-premise. Local servers, the box in the closet.
Right.
They've housed the firm's data for decades. They are the vault, they're familiar, they're deeply customized, and honestly, they handle complex stuff that some modern lightweight cloud tools just can't.
So they're the heavy lifters. And there's a security aspect too, I imagine. If you can see the server down the hall, it just feels safer than some nebulous cloud.
Perception is a very powerful thing. And yes, they are perceived as incredibly secure because they're physically contained, but there's a huge downside to these workhorses. They're rigid. The guide calls them heavy and office-bound.
Which means if I'm at court or I'm working from home, I can't get to my files without jumping through a million hoops.
Exactly. You're fighting with a slow VPN, just watching that little wheel spin, trying to open a single PDF. The data is siloed. It's locked down.
And updates must be a nightmare.
Oh, a white-knuckle event. It's manual. It's risky. If you patch the server and it crashes, the whole firm just goes dark for a day.
Yikes. Okay, so that's one side of the divide. The sturdy but very stubborn workhorse. What's on the other side?
On the other side, you have the modern cloud platforms. So we're talking about distributed systems, AWS, Azure, all the legal tech sauce products out there.
The shiny new toys.
Well, let's be careful not to dismiss them as just toys. They offer something that the workhorse just can't, and that's agility.
Right.
You can access them from anywhere, on any device. The innovation is super rapid. And crucially, the data flow is completely different. These things are built with open APIs. They are designed to connect from day one.
And updates just happen in the background. You don't have to call IT to install a patch over the weekend.
Correct. Automatic and continuous. So the logical question you might ask is, okay, if the cloud is so agile and accessible and the legacy stuff is so heavy and isolated, why doesn't everybody just switch?
Yeah, that seems like the obvious move.
Yeah.
Just dump the dinosaur.
It's not that simple. And it really comes down to the cost of the bridge. This is the friction point.
The bridge.
The problem isn't that one system is good and the other is evil.
Hmm.
It's that maintaining the connection between the old and the new just eats up a massive amount of your IT department's time and budget.
So you're spending all your money just trying to get the old workhorse to even talk to the new cloud app.
Or, more likely, you're not spending the money and you just let them exist separately. And that right there, that's how the digital archipelago forms.
These islands of modern tech just floating around the big continent of legacy tech, no bridges.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the consequences. Because if this was just an IT budget line item, maybe it wouldn't be such a big deal. But the source says this actually hurts the firm itself. It degrades the business.
It does. And to explain how the source uses this really powerful metaphor, it suggests we should view a firm not as a machine, but as a living organism.
That's a shift. Usually when we talk tech, it's all servers and circuit boards. Why, biology.
Because a firm, just like a body, relies on flow. Your heart has to send blood to your brain. Your nerves have to send signals to your muscles.
It all have to be integrated.
It has to be integrated to function. And this fragmentation, this archipelago, it just chops that organism up into disconnected parts.
That is a gruesome image, but I get it. The left hand has no idea what the right hand is doing.
Literally. And in a law practice, this shows up as data silos. Let's use the guide's example. Imagine you have a litigation team and a transactional team.
Okay, two different departments.
And probably using two different pieces of software. The litigation team uses one tool, the transactional team uses another. What happens?
The firm loses its single source of truth.
Exactly. And that term, single source of truth, I know it gets thrown around a lot in tech circles, but it is so critical here.
Why is it so important?
Because without it, you are basically operating on guesses. Maybe a client moved. The litigation team updates the address in their system.
But the transactional team system
Has no idea. So they're still sending sensitive billing documents to the old house.
oof. That is not just a billing nightmare. That's a potential privacy breach.
It is. It creates conflicting data, it makes the firm look disorganized, and it leads to something the guide calls the double entry tax.
Oh, I felt this one in my soul when I read it.
I think everyone has.
The double entry tax. I mean, we're talking about highly paid professionals, lawyers, paralegals acting as data entry clerks.
That is exactly it. You have this super slick modern intake form on your website. A client fills it out on their iPad. But then, because there's no bridge, a human being has to sit there, open two windows, and manually type all that same data into the old case management system.
It's the digital equivalent of digging a hole just to fill it back up again. But besides being just, tedious, what's the real risk?
The boredom is the risk. The source calls this a high-risk zone for human error.
Oh.
When people do repetitive, mindless tasks, they zone out, they make typos.
You miss a digit in a phone number, misspell a name?
Yeah. Or worse, you transpose a date. Imagine you're typing in a statute of limitations date and you get the year wrong because you were just switching between two screens.
That's a malpractice suit.
That's a malpractice suit. So this tax isn't just about wasting time. It's about the liability you are pumping into your firm's bloodstream every single day.
That's a terrifying way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of liability, we have to talk security. Because I think a lot of people assume having things separated is actually safer. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
It's a comforting thought, but it's actually wrong. Counterintuitively, securing a unified system is easier.
Really?
Yeah. When you have a fragmented environment, every single one of those unintegrated tools is a potential weak link. You have to secure the perimeter of every single island individually.
It's like trying to guard 10 small castles
Instead of one big fortress. Exactly. And this brings us to a huge problem the outline mentions. Shadow IT.
Shadow IT. It sounds like something from a spy novel.
It's simpler and way scarier. When your official legacy system is too slow or too clunky, what do your employees do?
They find a workaround.
They find their own solutions. They start using their personal Dropbox to share client files. They use some free PDF converter they found on Google. They start running firm business on WhatsApp.
Because they're just trying to get the job done.
Right. They aren't malicious, they're just trying to be efficient. But now you have sensitive client data sitting on servers you don't control, in apps you didn't vet, protected by passwords you don't manage?
That is the security nightmare.
That is the nightmare of the archipelago. By not building the bridge, you're forcing your people to build their own rickety little rafts to get across the water.
And those rafts sink.
They do.
Okay, we've covered the internal pain,
Hmm.
but there's one more consequence that I found really interesting, and it's all about the client. The source calls it time travel.
Yes. The inconsistent client experience. This is where your brand reputation really takes a hit.
So paint the picture for us. What does this time travel look like?
Okay, so imagine you're a client. You go to the firm's website. It's beautiful, modern. You use a portal to upload your documents. Everything feels like 2024.
So far, so good. I'm impressed. I feel like my case is in good hands.
But then the firm needs to send a document back to you. And because their back-end process is tied to that old legacy workhorse, the delivery method suddenly feels like 1998.
Let me guess. A password-protected zip file that they email you.
Or a confusing login to some clunky, completely different FTP site.
Whoa.
Or, and I swear this still happens, they mail you a CD-ROM.
No. The whiplash there is real.
It creates this cognitive dissonance. The front end says we are cutting edge, but the back end is screaming we are stuck in the past, and it just erodes trust.
It breaks the illusion of competence.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so we've established that digital archipelago is a very bad place to be. It's expensive, it's risky, it frustrates everyone. So let's pivot. Let's talk about the fix. Because I have a feeling a lot of listeners are dreading this answer. Does this just mean rip and replace?
Yeah.
Do we have to burn it all down and start over?
And that is the #1 fear. Consultants love to come in and say, just buy our new $1 million system. But Mormax.net is very clear here. This is not necessarily a rip and replace situation.
Oh, thank goodness. Because the downtime alone would kill most firms.
The downtime, the data migration, the training costs, it's a nightmare. The guide says solving this requires a shift in mindset, not necessarily blowing up your entire infrastructure. It's about evolution, not revolution.
Okay, so what's strategy number 1?
Strategy 1 is to prioritize interoperability.
That's a $5 word. Let's break that down.
It just means that from this day forward, whenever you're looking at new software, the very first question you ask isn't, is it cool or is it cheap?
Right.
It's, does it have an open API?
Okay, an API, an application programming interface, is basically the plug that lets software talk to other software. Why is asking for an open one so important?
Because if a tool doesn't have an open API, it is an island by design. It's a dead end. Some vendors do this on purpose to trap you in their little world. By making this your first question, you're essentially saying, I refuse to buy another island.
So you're stopping the problem from getting worse.
You're stopping the bleeding.
But what about the islands we already have? The legacy workhorse is still sitting in the closet.
And that brings us to strategy number 2, the middleware mindset.
Middleware. I always picture this as just digital duct tape. Is this a real strategy, or are we just patching holes?
That's a fair skepticism. You don't want to just add more complexity. But the guide argues that this middleware mindset is different. Don't think of it as duct tape. Think of it as a diplomat.
A diplomat. Okay, I'm listening.
Your legacy system speaks Latin. Your modern cloud app speaks, I don't know, emoji. They can't understand each other. Middleware, and we're talking about tools like Zapier or Workato or custom code, it sits in the middle. It listens to the Latin, translates it, and passes it to the cloud app in a way it understands.
So it's a translation layer, a governance layer.
Exactly. It's not just blindly passing data. It's managing the conversation. And it lets you keep the security and power of your legacy system while gaining the agility of the cloud. You're bridging the gap without that massive disruption.
That feels so much more manageable. It turns this huge construction project into more of a plumbing project. You're just connecting the pipes.
Right. And it leads to the third strategy, which is really the ultimate goal here. Centralize your data strategy.
Now, that sounds less like a tech problem and more like a people problem.
You hit the nail on the head. This is almost entirely cultural. It means you have to shift from seeing data as a departmental asset to seeing it as a firm-wide asset.
Because right now, the litigation team thinks, this is my client list, and the billing team thinks, this is my financial data.
Correct. And they guard it. The guide argues you have to break down those walls. The data belongs to the firm. When you centralize the strategy, you make that single source of truth we talked about actually possible.
So it's about making sure data is accessible and consistent everywhere.
Yes. It means when a client's phone number changes, it changes for everyone instantly. That's the goal. The strategy is data as a shared resource.
This really does tie back to that living organism idea. The whole body needs the blood, not just the left arm.
Exactly. And when you do this, when you finally build these bridges, technology completely changes its role in your firm.
How so?
The guide sums it up beautifully. It says technology should be a force multiplier, not a friction point.
I love that phrase, a force multiplier.
Because right now, for so many firms, tech is friction. It slows you down, it causes errors, it makes you apologize to your clients.
Right.
But when you unify your archipelago, tech starts doing the heavy lifting. It automates the boring stuff, it secures your data, it delivers that seamless 2024 experience.
Which brings us to the so what of this whole deep dive. If you're listening and you run a law practice, you didn't go to school to become an IT architect. Why should you care about middleware and APIs?
You should care precisely because you're not an IT architect. Your job is to practice law or to serve your clients. And every minute you spend managing fragmentation, every minute your staff spends doing that double entry is a minute stolen from your actual mission.
It's a huge opportunity cost.
Massive. By addressing fragmentation, you stop managing the tools, you stop the double entry, the data hunting, and you start managing results.
That's the key takeaway. You get your time back. You get your sanity back.
And you get your clients' trust back, which in this business is everything.
Absolutely. Wow. We've covered a lot. We unpacked the hybrid reality, the pain of the double entry tax, the risks of shadow IT, and finally, a path forward with the middleware mindset.
It's a journey from isolation to connection, a journey that's worth taking.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on. We've talked about these islands, these disconnected parts of your business. So I want you to look at your own firm today. If your business is a digital archipelago, which island is costing you the most?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Is it the island where your staff is manually retyping data, risking a typo that could cost you a case? Is it the island where client data gets lost between departments? Or is it that scary island of shadow IT where your security is just gone?
And the follow-up question has to be, is the cost of staying on that island really worth the price of building a bridge?
I have a feeling that most of the time, the bridge is a whole lot cheaper than the boat you're using to row back and forth against the current every day.
I suspect you're right about that.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Hopefully we help you map out your own archipelago a little better.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next deep dive. Until then, keep building those bridges.